I'll never forget the night I saw her in the woods, chanting under the full moon. It started when I moved to the village in Nigeria to teach. The locals were friendly, but they always warned me about the old woman, Mama Wande. They said she practiced black magic. I didn't believe in such things. One evening, curiosity got the better of me. I followed the path into the forest where people said she went. It was dark and eerie, with shadows dancing between the trees. Then I saw her. Mama Wande was standing in a small clearing, surrounded by strange symbols drawn on the ground. She was muttering in a language I didn't understand, holding a small doll made of straw. I watched from behind a tree, my heart pounding. Suddenly, she looked straight at me. Her eyes were sharp and full of something dark. "Come out, child," she said. I froze, but my legs moved on their own. "You should not be here," she said, her voice low and calm. "Do you know what I am doing?" I shook my head. "No, ma'am. I was just curious." "Curiosity killed the cat," she said with a chilling smile. "I am lifting a curse." I didn't understand. "A curse?" "Yes," she said, looking at the doll. "This curse has been in my family for generations. I am the last to carry it." My skin prickled with fear. "What kind of curse?" She sighed, her face suddenly looking tired. "A long time ago, my ancestor wronged someone very powerful. Since then, every firstborn daughter in my family is cursed to bring misfortune." I didn't know what to say. The air felt thick and heavy. She went back to her chanting, and I watched in silence. After a while, she turned to me again. "You must go. Forget what you saw." I stumbled back through the forest, my mind racing. But I couldn't forget. Strange things started happening. My students got sick, crops failed, and accidents became frequent. People began to whisper. One night, I saw Mama Wande in the village. She looked at me with those piercing eyes and said, "The curse is strong. But so is the will to break it." I couldn't sleep. I felt watched, haunted. One day, I gathered my courage and went back to the clearing. It was empty, but the symbols were still there, faint and eerie. Weeks later, Mama Wande disappeared. Some said she left to find a way to break the curse for good. Others believed she became part of the forest, her spirit watching over us. To this day, the village remains wary of the forest. And I left the village, but I carry the memory with me. The memory of a curse, a desperate woman, and the shadows in the woods. I tried to move on, but the nightmares followed me. I'd wake up in the middle of the night, drenched in sweat, hearing Mama Wande's chants echoing in my ears. I kept seeing those piercing eyes in every shadow. Months passed, and I returned to my home country, hoping the distance would bring peace. But strange things started happening there too. My friends got into accidents, and my family suffered unexplained misfortunes. It was like the curse had followed me. Desperate, I started researching African folktales and curses, hoping to find a way to protect myself. I found stories of ancestors who broke curses with rituals, but they were all vague and filled with warnings. One night, while reading an old book, I found a story about a similar curse. It mentioned a ritual that required facing the source of the curse and seeking forgiveness. The next morning, I booked a flight back to the village. When I arrived, the village looked the same, but there was a sense of unease. The locals were surprised to see me. They asked why I had returned, and I told them everything. Some shook their heads, while others looked at me with pity. I made my way to the forest again, my heart pounding. The path seemed darker, more menacing. When I reached the clearing, I was shocked to see it untouched. just as I had left it. The symbols were faint but still there. I knelt in the center and began to chant, following the ritual from the book. I called out to Mama Wande, asking for her forgiveness, pleading for the curse to be lifted. The forest was silent, the air thick with anticipation. Suddenly, a cold wind blew through the clearing, and I felt a presence behind me. I turned slowly, and there she was, Mama Wande, looking just as she did that night. "You came back," she said, her voice soft but filled with power. "I had to," I replied. "The curse, it's following me. Please, help me break it." She studied me for a long moment, then nodded. "You have faced your fear, and that is the first step. But breaking a curse is not so simple. You must show true repentance and make amends for the wrongs done." I was confused. "But I didn't do anything wrong. The curse was not your doing, but it has touched you. You must perform a final act of bravery to sever its hold." She handed me a small, ancient-looking knife. "Take this. Go to the village and find the eldest person there. They will guide you." I took the knife and made my way back, my mind racing. The villagers watched as I approached the elder's house. I explained everything, and the elder nodded solemnly. "There is one way," he said. "But it is dangerous. You must cut a lock of hair from the one who carries the curse and burn it in the sacred fire." "But Mama Wande is gone," I protested. The elder shook his head. "She is not gone. She is waiting for you in the forest. Go to the old baobab tree at midnight. She will be there." That night, I went to the baobab tree. Mama Wande stood there, her eyes sad but determined. "Are you ready?" she asked. I nodded, and with a trembling hand, I cut a lock of her hair. She whispered a prayer as I did. I rushed back to the village, the lock of hair clutched tightly in my hand. At the sacred fire, I threw the hair into the flames. The fire roared, and a gust of wind nearly knocked me off my feet. Then, everything went still. The elder approached me, a look of relief on his face. "It is done," he said. "The curse is broken." I felt a weight lift off my shoulders. The villagers cheered, and I knew I was free. I returned home, the nightmares gone, the strange accidents stopped. But I will always remember that night in the forest and the brave woman who helped me break a generations-old curse.